Australia Day, a date that unites millions in celebration but divides a nation in its meaning. For some, it's a time to reflect on progress and national pride. For others, it's a painful reminder of colonization and loss. Should Australia embrace its history or redefine its future by choosing a new date for unity? In this video, we delve into the heart of this debate, exploring the voices, arguments, and emotions that surround one of Australia's most controversial topics. Stay with us as we uncover the complexities of Australia Day and ask the question, should we change the date? Let's begin by understanding why Australia Day is celebrated on the 26th of January every year. On May 13, 1787, the First Fleet, a group of 11 ships under the command of Captain Arthur Phillip, departed Britain to establish a penal colony at Botany Bay. 8 months later, between January 18 and 20, 1788, all the ships arrived at Botany Bay. However, it quickly became clear that Botany Bay was unsuitable for settlement. Seeking a better location, Phillip and a few officers travelled 12 kilometres north to Port Jackson on January 21. They found a promising site and named it Sydney Cove. On January 23, Arthur Phillip ordered the fleet to move to this new location, but bad weather delayed the relocation. On January 25, amid gale-force winds, only HMS Supply, carrying Phillip Gidley King, a contingent of Marines, and around 40 convicts, managed to reach Sydney Cove. The remaining ships finally left Botany Bay and arrived at Sydney Cove on January 26. That day, Captain Arthur Phillip raised the British flag, marking the beginning of British settlement in Australia. In the evening, the colours were displayed on shore, and Phillip, along with several officers and others, gathered around the flagstaff to toast the King's health and the success of the settlement. However, the formal proclamation of the colony's establishment occurred later, on February 7, 1788. The history of Australia Day celebrations. In 1818, on the 30th anniversary of the colony's founding, Governor Lachlan Macquarie officially acknowledged the day as Foundation Day. He declared it a public holiday for all government workers, granting each an extra allowance of £1 of fresh meat. The day was marked by a 30-gun salute at Dawes Point, with 1 shot fired for each year of the colony's existence. In 1837, the first running of the Australia Day Regatta took place on Sydney Harbour, adding to the day's significance. In 1838, on the 50th anniversary of the colony's foundation, Australia's first public holiday was declared on January 26. However, before 1888, only New South Wales celebrated Foundation Day on this date, while other states observed their own foundation or proclamation days. By 1888, all colonial capitals, except Adelaide, celebrated Anniversary Day on January 26. South Australia joined in later, adopting January 26 as Foundation Day in 1910. This replaced their previous public holiday, Accession Day, which had been held on January 22 to mark the accession of King Edward VII, who passed away in May 1910. In 1915, an event called Australia Day was organised during World War I, primarily as a fundraiser for wounded soldiers. The term Australia Day was coined to inspire patriotic sentiment. In 1915, a committee was formed to organise the celebrations, and the chosen date for that year was July 30. However, the idea of celebrating Australia Day on January 26 took time to gain widespread acceptance. Victoria adopted the date in 1931, and by 1935, all Australian states were observing January 26 as the national day. Despite this, the term Foundation Day continued to be used locally in some areas. This period also saw the first prominent protest against Australia Day. In 1938, the Australian Aborigines League organised the inaugural Day of Mourning as a powerful statement against the white man's seizure of our country. This protest highlighted the growing resistance to the celebration of Australia Day by Indigenous Australians. In 1946, the Commonwealth and state governments agreed to unify the celebrations on January 26 as Australia Day. However, the public holiday was observed on the Monday closest to the anniversary, rather than the exact date. Today, Australia Day is marked by various significant events. These include the presentation of the Australian of the Year Awards on Australia Day Eve, the announcement of the Australia Day Honours List, and addresses by the Governor-General and the Prime Minister. It is an official public holiday in every state and territory, celebrated through community festivals, concerts, and citizenship ceremonies. Across towns and cities nationwide, it has grown into the largest annual civic event in Australia. In 1994, all states and territories agreed to standardise the observance of Australia Day on January 26, ending the earlier practice by some states of shifting the holiday to create a long weekend in late January. Arguments for keeping Australia Day on the 26th of January. Historical significance. The date marks the landing of the First Fleet at Port Jackson in 1788, which led to the foundation of modern Australia. It is seen by many as the beginning of Australia's evolution into the multicultural, democratic nation it is today. Unity and national identity. Australia Day is a day to celebrate what unites Australians, shared values, achievements, and the nation's diversity. Many see it as an opportunity to reflect on the country's progress and its future. Tradition and public sentiment. The celebration of Australia Day on the 26th of January has been a long-standing tradition, officially recognised in 1935 and consistently celebrated nationwide since 1994. Some Australians feel that changing the date might erode cultural heritage and history. Economic and social benefits. Public events, fireworks, community gatherings, and citizenship ceremonies foster national pride and unity. The holiday generates significant economic activity through tourism, retail, and hospitality. Acknowledging modern inclusivity. Efforts are being made to include Indigenous perspectives in Australia Day events through welcome to country ceremonies and Indigenous-themed performances. Arguments against keeping Australia Day on the 26th of January. Indigenous opposition and Invasion Day. For many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, the date represents the beginning of colonization, dispossession, violence, and cultural destruction. The term Invasion Day highlights the pain and trauma associated with the date, making it difficult for Indigenous Australians to participate in celebrations. Exclusion and division. Celebrating Australia Day on this date alienates a significant portion of the population, creating a divide rather than fostering unity. Critics argue that a national holiday should be inclusive, respecting the perspectives and histories of all Australians. Alternative dates are available. Other dates, such as the 1st of January, Federation Day, the 3rd of March, the Day Australia Act ended legal ties with Britain, or the 27th of May, marking the 1967 referendum granting citizenship to Indigenous Australians, could better reflect national unity. Moving the date could allow for a fresh start to celebrate Australia inclusively. Global reputation. The controversy surrounding the date has drawn international criticism, with some arguing that the current date undermines Australia's reputation as a progressive, multicultural society. A missed opportunity for reconciliation. Critics suggest that maintaining the date without change or acknowledgement limits opportunities for reconciliation with First Nations peoples. Changing the date could symbolise respect and recognition for Indigenous Australians and help heal historical wounds. Political stances on Australia Day have shaped its evolution over the years. While Robert Menzies declared Australia Day a public holiday in 1950, it was Labour Prime Minister Paul Keating who, in 1994, passed legislation making it a permanent, nationwide public holiday. Menzies famously remarked that patriotism requires due symbols, with Australia Day being one of them. Paul Keating, however, also made a powerful statement on Australia's history with his landmark speech at Redfern Park on December 10, 1992, during the launch of Australia's programme for the International Year of the World's Indigenous People. In this speech, Keating candidly acknowledged the nation's past, saying, "We committed the murders, we took the lands, we brought the diseases, and we took the children," directly addressing the atrocities committed against Indigenous Australians. Given that the Prime Minister who enshrined Australia Day as a permanent nationwide holiday also held such a strong view on the need for reconciliation, some argue that moving Australia Day to a different date would better reflect and unite us as a nation. The debate over Australia Day has elicited strong opinions from prominent figures across politics. Bill Shorten. I support Australia Day staying on January 26th. Richard D. Notale. I'm very confident that ultimately we will see Australia Day changed. Malcolm Turnbull. I'm disappointed by those who want to change the date. Patrick Dodson. We cannot afford to ignore this matter. Peter Dutton. On January 26th, we should unashamedly celebrate the achievement of modern Australia. To be born in Australia today, or to have become an Australian citizen after settling here, is to be truly blessed. It is to win the lottery of life. But sometimes we forget how fortunate we are. Among these voices, Australian actor Chris Hemsworth offered a measured and empathetic perspective. Not sure why we can't celebrate Australia on any of the other 364 days in the year? Why do we have to celebrate on a day that, for our First Nations people, marks such pain, sorrow, and deep loss? What if we made this day about reflection and respect for the oldest surviving civilization, how they may be feeling, and came together with solidarity, love, and empathy? We should stand together united in our commitment to reconciliation. Changing the date is the first step. No one loses anything, but a lot of people benefit greatly. But there's one more question to consider. How might Australia look today if European settlers had never arrived on its shores? Would it resemble Papua New Guinea, or perhaps something entirely different? It's a complex and thought-provoking perspective, reminding us that honesty in examining history should not be a one-way street. So, what do you think? Should Australia Day continue to be celebrated on January 26th, or is it time for a change? The decision ultimately lies with us as a nation. The symbolism matters. On February 13, 2008, Prime Minister Kevin Rudd offered a formal apology to Australia's Indigenous peoples, particularly the stolen generations, on behalf of the nation, in a historic speech at Parliament House. Tomorrow, another thoughtful Prime Minister may find themselves apologising for celebrating Australia Day on January 26th, against the wishes of the Aboriginal community. Australia is undeniably a great country, and the prosperity we enjoy today was largely shaped by European settlement. However, the voices and experiences of First Nations people must also matter. For them, the date of January 26, 1788, holds profound and painful significance. It marks the beginning of colonization. On this day, life as they knew it was irrevocably changed. People were dispossessed of their lands, separated from their country, and uprooted from the traditions and responsibilities they had upheld for tens of thousands of years. This is a deeply disturbing truth for all First Nations people, a truth that cannot and should not be denied. Let us sing together with Australian singer and lyricist, Sandra Heyman. I am not black. I am not white. I am not wrong. I am not right. Proud and true is who we are. Some from here and some from far. Help each other the best we can. That makes us all Australian.